There we are. Thank you, Elaine, for reminding me, even though I have a yellow note right in front of me. All right. So, I was telling you that in the announcement sessions, I gave you a link, and anybody can actually, respond to this survey. It is a bit tricky. Did any of you have a chance to take a look at it? No? All right. Just read the questions carefully. As any test, right? They kind of are tricky because in one of the questions, they say, something like, lower rents, right? But they also say low ownership, low cost housing for ownership. And so the two things are at the same level. And in many cases, there's actually a difference, right? And 4 is actually arguing that the reason that they're going to build in the green belt is because we need low cost houses for sale. And so I found it interesting that people would immediately say yes for lower rents, but it also with the building of the housing, right? So the two of them are together. Kind of interesting. So take a look. It doesn't say anything about social services at all, but it does talk about health, housing, and transit. So take 5 minutes to answer that. And that's actually a good way to have at least a little bit of a say in that. It's not a quiz, it's a survey. So you just, and like I said, it takes about 15 minutes. It's very, or even less, maybe 10. It's very short. And they ask you which should be the priority of the government of Canada, Ontario, I'm sorry. And you then have a list and you choose, you click on it. That's all you do, right? So it's an interesting exercise. All right, so for your essay, you do have to do an analysis of the, again, austerity measures or the structural adjustments measures, as they're called, which are all, oh, you did it, Darren.
I've read it. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and they're not questions per se. They are asking you choose 3 of the priorities, right?
Yeah.
And kind of that's all you need to do.
Yeah, so it's like, please identify, please pick.
Yeah.
Please choose, but yeah.
They give you a list of things. Some of them, of course, have to do with neoliberal policies, lower taxes, right? Incentive for employers and things like that. And so hopefully you are going to choose, stuff that helps with housing and transit and health.
Yes.
But of course, you're responding the survey. Going back to the essay. So the essay, one of the things, of course, that came to our attention, and you probably will get a memo soon from Bethany as a result of our discussions. We are aware of the ChatGTP, right? And is everyone aware of the ChatGTP? No? No. So it's this artificial intelligence program that writes essays for you. It's become, everybody's talking about it. Now, the good thing is that, of course, since this emerged, now we have the counterpart, which is another program that actually is for teachers. And I read this in the media and I put my name in the waiting list, and I now have access to this fabulous website where it does a lot more than that. And then write essays. Jay? I don't know. I was just interested in the writing of essays. What else does it do?
Honestly, it does just about anything.
Oh,
like it's really a really powerful tool. Somebody who writes computer programming can put their program code in and ask it to identify the errors. It's a very powerful tool.
Wow. Okay, I did read about that, the code stuff. Yeah. So anyways, for our purposes, we were very much concerned about the essay writing. And so, like I said, we now have the counterpart that identifies if it has been written by artificial intelligence. So it's called GTP-0. And so also to remind you that using this tool, it goes against the academic integrity policy at Sheridan, so it is considered cheating. And what we are going to do as well is that because there are other kinds of things that might be happening at large, not necessarily in our program, but at large, you know, ghost writers, people paying people to write their papers, stuff like that. And so we will have reserved the right to actually, if we think that that it's, you know, there's an indication that it might not have been written by that person, by the student, we will have an oral examination. So kind of like meet with the student and tell me about the paper and how you came to this conclusion. And that would be a way to actually find out whether this person has written this paper or not. Okay, so I don't know, the memo was supposed to, we had a meeting last week, so probably Bethany has been very busy, but there's a number of things that were discussed. That's one of them that I'm just bringing to your attention because of the next assignment being an essay. All right, so any questions? No? Very clear? All right. What is a ghostwriter? Oh, someone you pay to write your papers. You know, or people you pay. Actually, many famous people pay people to write their biographies. And so Donald Trump, you know, he didn't write The Art of the Deal. He actually paid someone, 3 writers, to write The Art of the Deal. And many, many people who are actually not writers hire ghostwriters, they're called. And they're called ghosts because their names don't appear as creators. Yeah. All right, so no questions? No? All right, we are going to continue then with what we were doing last week. We are dealing now. Before also we proceed to today's content, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Baines article that you were supposed to read. And the Baines article, it was for last week and this week, the same article. Please do read it, okay? And in this article, she mentions 2 concepts that you should know. One is the coercion and one is compulsion. So coercion to do free labor, right? How are people coerced by doing free labor? And even if you haven't read the document, how do you think people are forced to do free labor? What are some of the things that an employer might use in order to coerce people to do free labor? Threatening migrant workers. Okay, so for people who have devious or not devious, but they're in a vulnerable immigration status, you can threaten them. You can say, you know, if you don't work more hours than what you're supposed to, then of course you may actually, you know, I'm going to talk to immigration or whatever, right? So threatening migrant workers, or I saw a lot of international students actually where they were faced with this particular threat, that many of the employers thought that they were working illegally, although international students were able to work 20 hours at that time, and now it's even more, right? It has been expanded. But at that time, the employers thought that these people were here illegally, and they would threaten them, and they would say, you know, we're going to go to immigration if you don't work more hours, right? So ghostwriters, can they apply to songs? Yes, yes. So, hello? Oh, is that me with an echo? Yeah.
Maybe they'll also use, like, I would say, like emotional, like verbal, like manipulation. And they can also base it off on your social status as well. Like know that you, maybe if they know background information in regards to maybe personal information, they'll use that against you. Like, for example, like I'm a single mom, and like I sometimes I would feel obligated just to have for job security. Depending on how they would like talk to me, I would feel like it's an indirect threat of the role that I may not have my position if I don't stay late.
Absolutely. So that's one particular very direct way, right? Where the employer can say, oh, well, you know, we are in the process of promoting people or getting them a permanent job, and we are going to be looking at your commitment to the agency. And if you don't work, you know, extra hours, then of course you're not committed to the agency. So that's kind of a very direct coercion, in the sense that the person feels threatened in terms of their jobs, whether they're going to continue in the same job or get better opportunities in that job, right? So that coercion. What else? Guilt, Valentina, is more like the compulsion part, and we're going to talk about the guilt. But what other types of coercion can be used?
I can think of an example when they were building the infrastructure in Qatar for the soccer thing, whatever it was. And they had a lot of migrant workers come in, and they held on to like their passports and things like that.
Yes, yes. Again, direct coercion there, and the threat, right? And of course, if you don't have your passport, you cannot escape. You cannot leave the country. There may be many other kinds of consequences of not having your passport. You could be put in jail because if you're walking in the street and you don't have your passport, right? So that's definitely coercion. Hold off on compensation, commissions, absolutely. Again, if you are not working overtime or doing more than you're expected to, perhaps the commissions are going to be held. Pay in hand. I'm not sure, Christine, what
So most times some people would tell you, like, if you're doing extra job, they're not going to be putting in tax, so they pay hand to hand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't know, something like, I think it's usually called under the table.
Under the table, yes, yes.
Yes.
So that might be something that is a coercion, but it's also kind of an incentive, right? If I pay you under the table, then you can actually maybe get more taxes, and you're not going to have to pay taxes.
Yeah, but they end up not paying most people.
Right, right. So they promise, but they don't pay you. Okay. All right. So coercion, most likely the coercion is related to the safety of the job, right? As Gania was saying, coercion, the promotions, right? You know, again, that's usually the most. Now, in terms of compulsion, what is the compulsion? That's right, Doug. Welcome. So, and guilt, Valentina mentioned guilt before. How is guilt used?
Maybe threatening their family members, or I don't know, I just know in like I don't know if I'm on the right track, but for example, in sex trafficking, they might threaten the victims by telling them that they'll hurt their family members. I'm not sure if that's really.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay. So, but that's a particular, a different kind of a scenario, right? Trafficking, sex trafficking victims. It's very much different. But here we're talking about just regular jobs, right? Regular employment, and how do the employers get people to work more than what they should? And so guilt, yes, guilt in the sense of, many of you mentioned last week, the majority of people in agencies in social work are what? What gender are they? Women, absolutely. And as women, right, and here we go back to the social diversity class, we have been socialized for what?
To be caregivers.
To be caregivers, right? And so one of the things that maybe a lot of agencies, and I suffer, and I say through that, is that you feel compelled to actually work more because there is a need out there. So all of this nurturing, not only nurturing, but what other kind of motivation can you have in order to keep working even though you're not being paid? So not only caring, but what else, what other motivation do people have?
I'm thinking maybe promise to write a very good reference, or just make up some false reference to convince the workers to work more.
Yes, thank you, Elaine, for bringing that again to, but that would be coercion, right? Coercion is, again, if you work, especially volunteers or people, contract workers, we're going to give you an excellent reference. But if you don't work as much, we're not going to give you a good reference, right? Passion, validation, okay. When passion, okay.
Like meaning, like, for example, like you're so invested in the social change that you'll just do whatever it takes.
Absolutely.
So
that's what I mean.
your passion will drive you to go overtime.
Absolutely, right? So that's another, it's not only the caring, the nurturing, right? But some of us also are activists and want to make social change, and we just feel committed to that social change, and we work more than what we're expected because we understand that the agency doesn't have the funding, and so we work. Now there are other kinds of things, Valentina. Yes, validation, right? So people, there's a lot of women who get, oh, you're such a good worker, you're such a good person, and so there is that as well, validation. Promotion. Well, people are looking for promotions, right? And again, this would be the coerced part of it. So you don't compulsion. It's more, has to do more with your own beliefs, right? Your own kind of way of looking at the world, and kind of the reasons why we are in social work, right? Because we want to change the world. We want to provide people with services. We understand poverty, and we understand all of these social issues. And therefore we feel guilty if we say, well, at 5 o'clock, I need to leave, right? And so we ourselves kind of put we're put in the position of working more. But there is the other aspect. In some cases, even if people feel all of those things, maybe they have kids, so they need to leave by 6 p.m. because they need to pick up the kids. Then they might face coercion, right? Where the employers say, yeah, you're not, we can count on you. You're never here, right? We need to do extra stuff and you're not here. So we're not going to give you a reference letter, or we're not going to hire you again, or we're not going to give you a promotion. So those are coercions. This happened to me when I went to live in a hotel while working in long-term care. Passion, right? So you work far more than what you were expected, Julia, because you believe that you were providing a beneficial service, right? So please do read the document. She has a number of very interesting concepts. She and her colleagues studied 3 agencies. Now, one of the agencies was unionized. How do you think that was different than the other 2? Do you think that there was a lot of privatization of services? or precariousness in the unionized environment? What do you think? Are unions good for anything?
We owe a lot to unions.
Mhm.
We owe basically every labor law that's come in, that was started by unions.
Right.
You know, the 40-hour work week, you know, minimum wage, all that stuff, we owe that to unions. I mean, yeah, on the surface, people just look at unions as, you know, oh, they just, you know, hold governments and corporations up for money, which, I mean, yeah, sure. But I mean, at the same time, without unions, we would all be exploited way more heavily than we already are.
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, without unions, there would be no workers' rights.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting when you read the document, the three agencies that they studied, one of them was unionized, and as was expected, there were far less precarious work in that setting, right? And there was far less coercion, and there might have been compulsion, but not coercion, because of the union's role in that setting. The other two agencies were anti-union, and there's a funny part in the document where when they brought up the question of the unions, the person that was being interviewed actually spitted it, you know, kind of like don't curses. It was like a union was a curse, and she threw, or he, I don't know, threw them out, right? So it's in the article. What's the name of the document? Filling the gaps.
No, but Magali, I couldn't open the article. Like, I don't know, it said I need
Exactly,
access.
that's what, yeah, it's
I
not
never
open.
opened it. I tried to do
If
it today and it
you-
said I need a
Okay,
access
It's
so-
get
code.
access, yes.
If you search on the Sheridan Library for the title of the article, which
I've been
is in her
searching, I
link,
didn't see
you
it.
can find it.
I've been searching it now, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I found it on the Sheridan Library.
Yeah,
When I
yeah,
searched
I'm
the
there now.
title, it was
Okay.
the only result that came up.
Oh, okay, I will try.
Give me a
Okay.
second, I will link it.
Oh, thank you.
There's also a PDF format that I put not this week, but last week in a slate. So there it says PDF. If you click on it, I actually linked it to the PDF that I have. Yes, thank you, Alice. There's a PDF version under week 4. Yes. So if you do not know how to manage the library, then it's there in week 4. It's the same document for week 4 and week 5 because we're talking about the same kinds of things. Okay, all right. So coercion, compulsion. Now, in terms of, because we are going to talk about resistance this week, unionized environments. Have any of you worked in a unionized environment? So some people have.
Yes.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's very long.
Yeah, it's a long link, but it's the Sheridan Library
Right.
for the
Thank you so
article.
much, Jay.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So unionized environments. So Julia, you have worked in a union, in a unionized environment, not in a union. Anybody else? No one?
I have.
Lindsay, Jay, okay. The
I've
part-time
worked
job I have
in union and non-union, and my experience in working in this sector of social service, I will never work for a non-unionized.
Yeah.
Just from my experience.
No. Yes. And so unionize means that the workers, right? Yeah, Monique, I'm with you, Jay. Yeah, nobody should work in an ununionized. My entire life that I worked in agencies, I was unionized in
Can I say
every.
something?
Sure.
So here's the thing, like you were just talking like about like the threat unions impose on employers and stuff, or something to that effect, right? So I was at a place about 10 years ago and they were trying to unionize.
Mhm.
And when they caught wind of it, me and I think 4 others were fired for it.
Yeah.
That's how much unions scare employers,
Mhm.
because it takes away that exploitation.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I've always strived to work in a unionized position, but I mean, they're like, it's harder to come by when you don't know where to go.
Yes, yes. And you're right. People who organize in unions usually face a lot of resistance from the employers. They might be fired. There's a lot of stuff that happens. They're not supposed to legally, but it's not an easy thing to do, right? Non-profit. They tried that at Amazon and it didn't work exactly, right? And of course the guy who became famous, who started the whole movement, I think in New York, was it? He got fired, right? And so he actually was hired by the union to do the organizing. Walmart location where the staff tried to unionize, they shut the location down. Yes. So there are ways where employers will deal with unions, even if the union wins, but in some cases it has been successful. So I know that the Starbucks locations have been unionizing, so that's a very good thing. Now, what I wanted to do was just simply talk about what does it mean to be unionized. To be unionized means that you have a collective agreement, and a collective agreement is a document, right, whereby everything, right, it's written down what the employer can or cannot do, right, and all your benefits, and everything that you win, right, gets added to that collective agreement. And so I am going, as part of the exercise today, a group of you is going to take a look at QP and what they suggest they should be included in collective agreements in order to deal with privatization of services. If the restaurant industry ever succeeds in forming a union, the service industry will die within a year. Huh? Well, you never know. You never know. There might be some.
Oh, I don't think you have. I don't think you. I think you're underestimating how much restaurants exploit their employees.
Oh, no. I do not. What I think though is that because the collective agreement is an agreement with the employer, it's not something that is imposed on the employer, it's an agreement with the employer. It comes through by a negotiation. So it depending on the business, right?
But
So let me finish that thought.
Go ahead.
Depending on the business, right, you would actually then develop a collective agreement that would take into account you're as a worker, you don't want to break the business, right? You don't want to bankrupt it. And so there is that collective agreement. That's why I think restaurants, it depends. Maybe they would lose a lot more money if they closed rather than have good unionized staff. And there are some restaurants that are unionized. I do know some.
I meant across the board. I think you would see like bigger chain restaurants survive, no problem. But like it would kill the privately owned businesses because they couldn't afford to keep up with the terms of said agreement.
Like I said, that is a myth that a lot of people use that argument to say, oh, the mom and pop shops, right? That they can't pay people fair wages. And in fact, and I can give you some links, there have been studies that that's not at all the case, but it is an argument that it's used usually, right?
I'm just using my experience, that's it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, some restaurants are already unionized because I know that I have a few friends who work in the union and they have been unionizing. But you're quite right. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy task. All right. Okay. So let's do this. McDonald's. Oh, McDonald's. Yes. Yeah. So all of this kind of McDonald's are, what do they call when those businesses that
Franchise.
Thank you, Ganyo. Yes, right. And so but there have been efforts to do one by one, right? The same thing they did at Starbucks, and they did win the unionization. And so, but that was one Starbucks. So now they're kind of like trying to, replicate the model. And we'll see. But you're quite right. In this climate, it has become really difficult. Absolutely, right? That's a real It's the truth. All right. So how many people are we today? 26. All right. If you are not here, how can I do this? Okay. I'm going to divide people into groups, and we are going to do the same thing that we did last week with the different topics. So the topics are in a slate. So one of them, let me just share this. Okay, give me a second. Module 2.
Are we going after the other two topics we didn't cover last week?
Yes, that's what we're going to do.
All right.
And the resistance part, which is the bargaining and the privatization guide. So let me see my meeting. No, where am I? Share screen. Ah, why is it not there? I'm not sure why it doesn't. Okay, let's see. Okay, I have to sign in. All right, I'm going to ask you to actually look at a slate in week 5 in the activities part, because for some reason it's not appearing. I don't understand why. It's in my, it's there. So let's try this one more time. I should be on it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so so one group is going to do accountability measures. Okay, and that the information for that is in the PowerPoint. One group is going to do the accountability chart. If you click on it, it should give you a chart, and it tells you the kinds of reports and the kinds of accountability tools and how they can be used for different actors or stockholders. So usually these tools are directed mostly to the funders. So I want you to actually take a look at that and come up with some sharing of some of the tools that are used in the accountability. The standardization part is in the PowerPoints. And then group 4 will look at the bargaining and privatization guide. Okay, which is again, if you click on slate, it should take you to the QP bargaining and privatization guide. So is everyone clear on what we're supposed to do? 25, what is that 25? The people that were in class?
We're in class, 2 people. I don't know.
Okay.
But there's 23 altogether, so
4 groups of 5. Excellent. Thank you for doing the math for me. All right. So I'm going to divide you. So let me see. So group 1 will do topic 1, right? So depending on the group number, you're going to do the topic. All right. Let's see if I can do this. And breakout rooms, and we're going to do 4 groups of 5. Create. Open our rooms. All right. So we have 6 in 1, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, so we have 6 in. And can you let me know? Okay, I have to broadcast. Okay. Parjana, are you here? Mhm. Mhm. Sumi, are you here? Hi there. Okay, so can you let me know? I know I can actually see who is in the group and who's talking. Remember that I am giving you marks for this, bonus marks. So you also want to know if someone is not in the group.
Officer, please let me in the group.
Sorry?
Oh, please let me in the group.
Sorry, I can understand.
I miss, yeah, I missed the is, so please let me in the group.
Oh, Sumi. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't know how to do this.
Thank you.
Okay. Just a second. Give me a second. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
I was in group 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
You need to join. You're there already. So you just need to join.
Yes. Oh, but I couldn't find it. That's why I was here.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, sorry, inconvenience.
Sumi. Because when I send it to you,
Mhm.
oh, did I close them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, sorry, I was trying to get Sumi into the, okay, so we're gonna. Okay, I need for people to come back. Right.
We're back.
We're at 22. And we were 22 before?
We were in our room. You brought us back?
Yes, I pressed the wrong thing because Sumi was asking me to, she was not in the group. And so I don't know what I did. All right, let's do this again. One more time. 20 students now. All right. So you have 20 minutes to do this. And please take notes. The same process we did before, right? You may have someone who does the main presentation, but everybody can participate and bring points for the discussion. And if you can share some of the note taking that you have done, that would be great. Okay.
I'm sorry, Magali, I was in group 1 and we had like 3 slides and there wasn't that much info on the slides. So you want us to elaborate on?
Yes, please. So do some Googling, come up with some examples,
Okay.
stuff like that.
Okay.
It might not take that much. It might be very short. So I'm going to give you 20 minutes. But again, if you can come up with other kinds of examples, look for other stuff in addition to what is there, that would be great. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's do this again. Breakout rooms. Now you're going to be in different open our rooms. All right. Sumi, were you able to join? I don't know.
Kick me out, Magali.
I kick you out.
No, my internet was get slow and I didn't know what happened. Kick me out from the group.
Oh, can you go get in?
No, I can. It was group 4.
Oh gosh. I don't know.
Somebody else is also here.
Oh, Magali, I was in room number 1, but my computer was acting funny.
Same as mine.
Okay.
And it's dark. It's dark. You can't see my face. I don't know what happened.
All right. I have no idea how to put you back in there, guys.
In the one room.
No. And assign me. Oh wait, let me see.
Can you add? There is
Wait,
probably.
yeah, yeah. Wait. Assign to. Oh, there we are. Okay. Assign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Sumaya, assign.
Group number 4.
Assign to. All right. And recording.
And evaluation of the program is done. So I'm going to pass it off to Isra to explain this particular PDF overview about the state of evaluation.
So hi, everyone. So regarding the accountability and the funder, they are imposing a lot of measures in order to make sure that their money are going to right place. So one of these criteria or measures like doing should be evaluation for conducting survey, reporting, also the quarterly financial status updating all the time. That is required. That is more work are added for the organizations and the workers and the staff. And that's why, as Gania mentioned, that the efforts now directed from the community and from the staff, from the clients towards these funders in order to meet their criteria and their measures. So also many quantitative and qualitative measures are imposed and used in order as any project done, there is a logic model done. There is input, output, outcome, and impacts. So these qualitative and quantitative methods are directed towards these output and outcome and outcome measures in order to make sure that these services are doing what it's required. So as you see, many papers, many works, many research are done in order to make sure and to meet the criteria of the funders.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
And
so
just to
much.
add to that, what Israel was saying, just want to give the example, in regards to the input and outcomes, some of those evaluations are through the attendance of service. Some of those evaluations are done in regards to providing just a report, maybe a quarterly report in regards to how the funds are allocated and how they're being used within the program.
Mhm.
So when you have funders, they need to be informed and being aware of how successful is the program. And in regards to the outcomes, we're going to be discussing just in regards to what the outcomes, that the end results of that particular program at hand. So for example, if you had youth who are have behavioral issues and they are in this program, how successful was the program? What was the end result? Are they behaving better? Are their grades better? So we would provide them with the outcomes of why we're having the program. Our mission and vision will support the outcomes. And then in regards to the attendance, using maybe surveys and as an evaluation in regards to success of the program, and then just how we are just distributing the funds, as well as maybe donations of equipment within the program. So we just want to add that too.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else one last point on this? No? All right. Can we do one more group and then take a break? And then we will do the other two groups.
Our group could go next.
Okay.
Group number 2. So
Sorry.
I guess following the order.
Oh, okay.
Lindsay is going to share the screen to look at the chart of our topic, which is accountability, the accountability chart. I'll just wait for her to pull it up.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this chart, we're looking at the characteristics of accountability mechanisms. And so they gave different examples. So in the first column on the left, there's different tools or processes, and those could be from disclosure reports, evaluation evaluation and performance assessments, self-regulation, participation, and then along with adaptive learning. So some of them are tools and some of them are processes, but they still fall under this category. And then we look at the first one. So we're going to be reading it from left to right. And so the disclosures / reports are, who are they accountable to? So in the column, it has upwards to funders and oversight agencies, and then along with downwards to a lesser degree to clients or members who read the report. So it's saying the disclosure reports, who they're accountable to, basically, as it says. And then what are they accountable for? What are they letting the funders or clients know from this report? And we could look at it. They owe them basically like the finances and performances depending on what is included in the report. And the inducement, so why they need to make these reports and have them public to, again, funders or the clients. There's legal requirements. Again, it depends. We could look at another one afterwards, but sometimes it is required legally to post these reports for people to know for transparency reasons, along with tax status and funding requirements. It's just easy for the funders, again, specifically, to see finances and all that. And then the organizational response, so compliance or strategic. So this could be primarily compliance with a focus on letter of law and short-term results. So that's just another category as to why, like, how they're complying with it. We could look at, say, Lindsay, maybe if you want to scroll down to like maybe like self-regulation, which is a bit different compared to, say, like a physical type of report. So this could be, so like, how would a self-regulation tool be accountable? Like, who would that be accountable to? So it is accountable to the nonprofits themselves, not really to funders or anyone. I mean, it is, we could see that says to donors, but it's also keeping themselves accountable, holding them to the standard that they set. And then even like, what are they accountable for self-regulation? Making sure that they're staying on top of their finances and the governance, again, depending on what their standard is for the organization that they like, the topics that they focus on. And then for inducement, why do they, the self-regulation? So erosion of public confidence and due to scandals and exaggeration of accomplishments. That's why they're posting these, because that's kind of like persuading them to post it. And then, thank you, Hannah. I feel like this was a little difficult for our group. And then the organizational responses, we could see for self-regulation, is strategic and it raises industry standards, along with compliance to standards that may be weak and can be adopted from. But yeah, so those are just some examples. I feel like if we read everything off the chart, but it's kind of just showing it like to who it's accountable to, why, or like what is accountable, like what's persuading them, and then the response to it. So.
All right. Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Valentina. That was great. And may I add that this is a really good chart to actually have, because it does show you exactly why do you do it, right? What should be in it, right? And how sometimes people do it strategically. It would be a good idea, but not necessarily it's mandatory, but in some cases it's mandatory. They have to do it. And so the first one that Valentina read, of course, the annual reports fall into that category, and they have to do it. Every agency has to have annual reports, right? All right. Does anybody else wants to add anything to that? No? All right, so it's 7:27, 10-minute break. Yes. See, I only have Dag, so I can
Yes.
understand. Thank you. Maybe another two people so I can get a.
Yes.
Thank you.
This works.
I just need some
Yeah.
kind of representation.
It's okay. It's okay, Magali. I'm used to speaking for the class.
All right. Okay, so 7:27, 7:37, we come back and we finish the other two groups. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Is everyone back? We're missing someone. All right. Okay, so group 3. Is anybody from group 3? Group 3. Moji, Monique, Farjana, Rebecca, anybody?
You want me to go for group 4 and then circle back, or?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that while we wait for group 3.
Okay. Ah. I don't know how you deal with this. I'm trying to change tabs, but the toolbar's in my way.
I don't know.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Can everybody see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So myself, Cheyenne, Christine, Samaya, and Hannah, we were working on the bargaining and the privatization PDF report that was shared by QP. And it basically is a guide to preventing privatization. So it starts out like that best part is to take a multifaceted approach that restricts employers from contracting out. Using notice, disclosure, and consultation requirements to get ahead of the prospect of contracting out. Negotiating standards with contractors that deter the privatization, and as well as establishing a process to reverse privatization by having the contracted out companies bring back in union members. So typically when employers are start contracting out, they'll use like employment agencies, for example, that basically they bid on the company, and whoever has the lowest price usually will get the contract, and then they'll use people, like I explained last week and before, how I've been a part of an employment agency, which again, lower wage, not non-union, so it's like you're basically as expendable as they come. And this often drives down wages and working conditions across the entire sector. So the strategies that QP put out basically helps protect jobs in many situations, and tries to discourage employers from contracting out by making layoffs costly and disruptive to their business. And again, without collective agreements, employers can contract out work, which undermine everything from benefits and using seniority for promotions and stuff like that. So just a little bit of So what is contracting out? It means like the results of it means that fewer people are contributing to pension plans and reduces the pool of union dues that help defend the working conditions. Also, public services do suffer when things are contracted out, become privatized, and services become less accountable. And a community has little to no influence over the action of these private companies. So there's 5 provisions that CUPE laid out in this document that they use for restricting contracting out. And that is like no contracting out if union members can perform the work needed. Also, in emergency situations, or if it reduces the size of the union or reduces the number of hours or results in layoffs. And it also protects layoffs of certain employees. The employer can contract out, but must take certain measures to mitigate the impact of the employees who are displaced. And then there's a couple of like actual like language stuff in here from bargaining agreements. Like 90 days, and there's also one that talks about even a 6-month period that allows the union to combat the offer of being of going private.
Okay.
So in addition to the notice period, unions should negotiate a requirement to consult that gives the union an opportunity to engage with the employer about their intention to contract out union work. Sorry, we kind of ran out of time to summarize the whole thing.
No. You weren't supposed to summarize the entire thing. No.
Oh.
We're just to give us a kind of you already done a great job. So that's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.
All right.
Right.
Does anybody else from the group want to add anything? No? All right. All right. So group 3, is anybody from group 3?
Yeah.
Moshi? Okay.
So I'm here. I can't talk much, but definitely I can try my best. Hopefully my group members will come in.
Okay.
So we had standardization. Basically,
Okay.
I'm just going to share my screen as well. Okay. So just let me know. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of run through, what the standardization is. So in terms of standardization, they talked about the business model. It forces human and social service to standardize their work. Talks about the key components as well of the breakdown. It's a breakdown into smaller groups, smaller segments, which makes work easier to farm out to part-time casual workers and volunteers. So we have a lot of great examples regarding standardization and work ethics and things like that. What really kind of got to me, because I went through the standardization slides, there was this particular part. It kind of sums it up. Standardization, it intensify work and make it less rewarding. So basically, that's the everything else is just kind of breaking it down. The practices are so okay, I skipped this one. Simplifying and standardizing work, it reduced the cost of labor, and talks about why. And it says because simplified work requires workers with less credentials, which in turn reduce the cost of labor. So basically, it all boils down to this as well. Intensifying the work and making it less rewarding. I don't know, Monique, did you want to give the example? Because we have a couple of people that are in that situation. One of my group members, I think Fazana, she's volunteer at the food bank. And also, like I work part-time as well. So we talked about like the benefits and things like that that you don't get because of, you know, things like this. Anybody there? I know we're 19 now. I don't know if, is Fazana here? I think she's here.
Yeah. Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
All right.
And Monique as well. They can give you like examples.
So we talked about like working in the nonprofit sector where you don't get like lunchtime and you're afraid to go to management regarding that because you don't want to lose your job, something to that sort.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Versus
also, go ahead.
versus like having a union where you get to voice your opinion. Say for instance, you don't get your 15 minutes, you can go and say, I didn't get my 15 minutes and it's mandatory and I don't know, something to that sort. I don't know if I'm correct.
Yeah, and if you take break or like something, you have to doing extra. I did volunteer, but yeah, I have to do extra.
Even if you're a volunteer?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. Any other comments?
So basically, that's like I said, that was what it was. It just, unless you wanted me to go through the PowerPoint itself that you already, you know, broke down there, the practices, it limiting the kind of interaction workers can have with clients and types of intervention they can provide, shortening the number and length of interaction with clients. Standardized practices include making extensive use of irregular shifts. This is true for sure. Requiring vastly increased amount of documentation. Even supervision is increasingly standardized, often taking the form of flow sheets, computer cases, management packages, and checkboxes. I work part-time, and one thing I did, I do see a couple of practices where I work. Another thing is that when you work part-time as well, like I work different shifts. Like I can either work like the 7 to 3 shifts, or I can work like overnight shifts. So, you know, I see a lot of these practices come into play. And as far as like even vacations and things like that, they're different benefits. You know, they're a bit different. So basically it's like they're making more money, the companies, than the people that are working.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much. Anybody else wants to say? Doug, you had your hand up?
Yeah. I just wanted to speak on that. So like for anybody who doesn't know, doesn't matter if you're volunteer, part-time, full-time, whatever. If you work longer than 4 hours, you are entitled to at least a 15-minute break. If you're not getting that, then you have every right to go to the labor board. It is extremely illegal that they don't allow you to take lunches or stuff like that. And that's a big problem in the service industry too. Like I was talking about earlier. And like I encourage anybody, read up on your workers' rights from the labor board, because like that's how employers get you. They just assume people don't know their rights, and they'll take full advantage. They'll take full advantage of you before you even realize what's happening.
Right. Thank you. Yes, knowing your workers' rights is very much important, not only for yourselves, but as community development workers, you should know what the basic labor law requires the employers to do. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation and your contributions. So I just want to make sure in terms of the standardized practice, if you think, for example, that, before someone who was an artisan produce a shoe, right? They would actually do the entire shoe themselves. They would build the entire shoe. And then, of course, a standardization came into place and said, well, we could do it faster if this group of people only did the soles, right? And this other group of people did just the top part. And this other group of people put it together. That's what standardization means, right? You only get to do a part of the job. And usually they break it down. So the job for writing down the intake forms would not take many skills. And they can hire people with fewer skills and pay them less in order to do only that part of the job, right? And so in the Baines document, it's interesting because there is a particular example where this agency brings people who are doing their masters in clinical psychology and social work counseling to do the counseling. And they pay a supervisor, someone who has credentials, to actually supervise them. And so this is kind of a standardized practice where you're using labor to do. Actually, this requires a lot of skills, but they're just doing that part, and they have to actually do it because the university requires them to do it, right? And so this is also, it's not only the employers who are actually forcing people to do this, but it's also the colleges. We do placements and all that kind of stuff, okay? So that's the standardized practice. So we talked about all of these standardizations. I just want to finish with resistance. So the group with group 4, which again, Christine, Dag, Hannah, and Sumaya, we're supposed to talk about the resistance part. So obviously, unions are providing that resistance to privatization and standardization and all the kinds of requirements. They haven't been very successful in terms of accountability because that's the funders are actually demanding that. And so now resistance, sometimes it's not, when you think about resistance, what comes to mind? Protest, right? People going up in arms, right? But of course, resistance can be very subtle. So what are kind of the things that people are doing to resist these working conditions?
The quiet quitting thing that's going on.
Yeah, the quiet quitting that's going on. Absolutely right. Everybody's talking about that. They can go on a strike, but that requires, first of all, strikes are only for unionized people. But definitely, if the things become so terrible, you can actually, that's your last resort, right? But before you do that, there's individual resistance. So what can you do? Say you're being exploited and you're at this work. What can you do to resist that exploitation?
Go to labor board.
Okay, before you go to the labor board.
Well, it's not like they listen any other way.
Well, but people not doing your job properly. Absolutely. You can actually, not do your job properly. You can do a really bad job. And sometimes it's not even something that you do voluntarily, but because of the conditions, you might not be able to do your job properly. So remember, the long-term care workers had 6 minutes to actually deal with the patient. That meant changing the patient, feeding the patient, all of that, 6 minutes. And so in order to do the job, they would actually hurry up and probably cut corners, right? And so in that sense, it was very negative for the patients, right? But you definitely can go very slow, do the bare minimum, absolutely, the bare minimum. What else do people do? Anything else? You guys are very good workers.
Stop showing up to work.
Stop showing up to work. Okay, calling sick,
Mhm.
right? Absenteeism, right? What else? Anything else? Nothing? You guys are very good workers and no long coffee or breaks or bathroom breaks, cigarette breaks, no?
I mean,
Sure.
I've smoked since I was like 16, but I've never taken extra breaks or anything to go have a smoke.
Right,
I just do it on my allocated, because it's not fair to the other ones that don't smoke, right?
that's true.
So, and that's been an argument in every sector for years.
Yes. But talking about resistance, right? People resist in different ways. So it may involve minor infractions of the rules, right? Open advocacy for change when people complain. Some of you mentioned complaining, right? Saying, oh my God, the conditions here are terrible. People are quitting, right? Or a combination of both. Right? So Baines and Van Dyck Brock, right, in the study of coercive care in the restructured workplace, reported that workers engaging in informal resistance, it was the work avoidance and time reclamation. So these are fancy titles to just say, do the minimum that you can and take longer, right, in the bathroom, in the break, or just in the task that is assigned. Right? Making personal calls during the work hours, doing non-work tasks on work time, stuff like that, right? So they also found that that workers ascribe oppositional meaning to their work. What does that mean? One of the oppositional meaning was when the unpaid care workers would actually extend the work hours, and they took work home, working through the lunch and breaks, and so forth. This is actually something that is being expected of people these days, right? We were talking about the expectation of people to doing more, right? And so these practices are self-exploitative, and they're not getting paid for important work, right? And so in some way, workers have ascribed a new positional meaning to these activities in the way that they just look for more opportunities to finish the task. So you have a lot of stuff to do, right? You haven't completed it. And so you actually need to complete it in order to prove that you're a good worker. So you would take this work home and complete it at home and bring it back. And so in a way, it's self-exploitative. We talked about the compulsion, right? But on the other hand, you complete the task, and therefore you continue to be in the good place in terms of being a worker there, and of course, protecting your job, right? And by doing that as well, you are demonstrating to the employers, look, there's so much I have to do that I have to take it home. So in a way, they are actually making it public that this is very unfair, right? That you're taking the work home. Can we touch on how we as a society have been manipulated into wearing our exploitation as a badge of honor? Absolutely, absolutely. And this is we talked about the compulsion aspect, why some of us do the stuff that we do. And of course, in our capitalist system, work is a defining identity, right? And so being a good worker, a loyal worker, right? And so this idea that, and if you're a hard worker, you will be recompensated or compensated, because you're a good worker. So we actually internalize this idea as well, right? And so that's part of the compulsion part. But in this sense, by making it public that there's so much work that I have to take stuff home, you're making it also not a hidden thing, right? Engaging in unpaid work was not simply about giving back to society. These workers were trying to change society. So we talked about the compulsion aspect of it. So people do it because they're socially aware and they're activists. And so they saw their unpaid work as being pushing back at an uncaring management, government, and problematic societal belief system. Right? So different kinds of perspectives and ideologies are behind people working more. Some of it, as we discussed before, is very obvious, right? You do it because you're afraid for your job, but sometimes you self-exploit. Some of it might be because this idea that, you know, you're a good worker, but in many cases, especially in the social work field, it's because we believe that we are doing something good, that we're changing society, right? But because of that. And of course, the classic resistance is when people quit the jobs. So that's in one of the agencies that they studied, Baines and her colleagues, they had a turnover of 50%. So imagine the kind, like people were constantly coming in and then leaving. So that's one of the most obvious kinds of resistance, people simply saying, you know what, I quit. Of course, now we have the whole quiet quitting, I think it's called. Quiet quit.
Yeah.
So what are the forms of resistance in the organizations that they studied? Stealth, social work practice, impression management, and hidden transitory conditions are the three ones. And so the stealth practices refers to practices that are beyond the radar of management surveillance. It's stuff that you do to help other people identify. Oh, I just noticed a big mistake there. Identify your allies, who is with you and who is, you know, kind of like management, pro-management, right? And it's actually builds supports and networks within the work community, right? So using policies and procedures that were no longer in use in her agency was one way of doing a stealth resistance. Playing dumb, right? It's better to ask for her forgiveness rather than permission. These are all kinds of things that validate that the work condition is not a good work condition, right? Oh, that's it. I thought there was another, sorry. So now what happens? Sorry, I read this. So the stealth is doing stuff kind of behind the management back. The impression management is to identify allies and people that you can trust within the organization. You can also identify spaces where you can go and hide or meet with people, right? And then forming hidden coalitions, right? That will support you if you go against management. And of course, then you have what Doug was mentioning, you know, there's the formation of unions, right? You can also go to the ministry to complain. You can also, what else can you do if the conditions are so exploitative? And usually also when they're based on, you know, work exploitation doesn't just happen, it's also related to gender, to race, right? To age. And so human rights is another place where people might complain about work exploitation not being promoted as other people, etc. So any questions?
Well, I just wanted to expand for a minute on what I was saying in the chat. So like, we've all been sold this idea that, you know, you're right, like, oh, like the hardest worker is gonna, like, hard work, you know, you get the life you want, whatever. Okay, that neoliberalism stuff. And the problem is like, we've turned it into a competition because us as humans, we're competitive by nature. And so what I mean by that is, like, for example, my old jobs, like the constant competition around the entire kitchen was who worked the most hours this week. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, who had the most time robbed from them this week. You know, because there was a few of us, myself included, doing 10, 12, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, you know, and yeah, you can imagine how exhausting that gets.
Yeah.
But I'm like, and that's the thing though, because like when you try to speak up about something like that, the very common response you'll get from people is, oh, well, you think that's hard? I did this, this, and this.
Right.
Or, you know, like, you know, back in the day, I used to do this and this and this. And it's like, and there's that competitive nature again. But again, we've been so conditioned in our capitalist society where we can, you know, and working a lot of hours doesn't necessarily mean working hard either.
No.
But when you do both and you're not compensated properly, that's where you start to wake up to some of that exploitation.
Mhm.
And it's very hard to verbalize that when you're the only person in a workplace that kind of sees the bigger picture of it.
Okay, any other comments? I want other people to participate as well, so we can. Have you seen this in places where you work, where people kind of do this competition and who works the most kind of thing? No?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it in my employment where, for example, people will just announce what they're doing, and or like the manager will say, "Oh, Magali did this," and just try to put things against the other employee, or put that guilt, as I think Valentina mentioned before, like in regards to like how busy you are. Sometimes, like, for example, I was in situations where I would finish my work early, and some people it takes longer to do certain tasks. So if you finish early, then sometimes you end up taking on more tasks. And you know, you're put against the other employee for not working as fast.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So very common in Asian countries to praise the staff who work overtime. Absolutely, right? So we know that in Japan, there's a culture, right, of this kind of thing that has gone almost to the extreme. And I was watching this program where there is a movement now, actually, who is rejecting this kind of idea that your whole life is your company, right? The corporation that you work with, and people work from, from 14-hour days, and then at the end they just go home and they're kind of like, absolutely tired. But in social work, a lot of that happens as well, because particularly in social work is who is the most committed to the clients, right? Who is the most committed to the community or social change. And so it becomes also something that reflects on your value as a person, right? Anybody else wants to comment? Somebody else who hasn't spoken? No? Or in the chat, you don't have to speak. How are we doing? No? All right. If there aren't any comments, I would really urge you then to read the article. I know it's a long article, but it was supposed to cover 2 classes. Yes, you should be a union organizer. So please do read.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, do read that article, and kind of understand the concept of coercion and compulsion, and of course some of the resistance that workers do in the job place. Any questions before we leave? Okay, just one last thing. We're going to go back to kind of regular lectures for the next classes. but I just wanted to let you know that the bonus marks is just for participating. So it wasn't, I wasn't evaluating your participation. It was just for participating. Okay. Just to clarify that aspect. Any questions before we leave? No. Farjana, are you still here? Is there any sample to follow to prepare for the next assignment? Like an essay? No. We haven't done it before. So it's an essay about austerity measures. The questions again are there to guide you. We have been talking about all of that stuff, privatization, what kinds of things have been privatized in Toronto, the stuff that has been going on. So it's, I would urge you to read the assignment, but of course I'm available to meet if people want to meet. It is due when is it due? Week 8, okay.
So after reading week.
After reading week. So we can talk maybe next week. We can go over the assignment and kind of if people have questions specifically, or you can always contact me and I will be glad to meet with you. All right. Okay. So if there are no other questions, then Farjana is gone. So, all right. Okay, no, she's not here.
I just want to say thank you, Magali. Like you got me going on some topics that I'm very passionate about. So, and I'm just gonna say it we need to do a revolution, man.
Yes, another revolution. Yes.
Yes.
I do agree with you with that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, have a great week.
All right, you too. Take care yourselves. And yeah, so she left. So I guess she was able to see the slate. Have a wonderful night. Sumaya, are you here? No. Oh, okay, stop recording.